Do you like hiking and camping and now want to take it to the next level and try backpacking? It can feel like there's an overwhelming amount to learn. What should you pack, eat, where can you find water, and where do you go poop? Well, stick around today because I'll be answering all of your beginner backpacking questions. Hi friends, I'm Lauren Gastineau, and backpacking season is something I look forward to every year. Last year, I spent nearly every weekend in the summer backpacking around North Cascades and Oregon. In a season, I tend to cover over 300 miles, backpacking on the weekends and balancing this with my work. I'm so glad I took the plunge 5 years ago and tried out my first backpacking trip in college. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll feel warmed up and motivated to go out and try backpacking yourself. This week, I asked you over my Instagram what some of your beginner backpacking questions were, and you really stepped up. Before we jump into your questions, please hit the like and subscribe button, as I'm really trying to grow this channel to give you more backpacking and hiking resources and motivation. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram so that you don't miss another opportunity to submit one of your own questions. And finally, today I'll be talking about a lot of gear, so I'll make sure to link those down below. Before we jump into the questions, I want to share my beverage of the day, which is Aqua de Kefir, and it's from GT's. This flavor is Ginger Lima. I'm excited to try it. It's not a kombucha, but it's still a probiotic beverage. So, let's see. Oh, that smells great. Start with that. Oh, that's delicious. All right, now let's hop into your first question. Gear's expensive, what are the essentials? This is the perfect way to start off with the essentials. And this will likely be our longest section. I'll make sure to time mark every question so that you could hop around to questions that are most vital to you. Okay, so if you have looked at all into backpacking gear, you probably come across the phrase of the big three. The big three are the big three pieces of gear that any backpacking adventure requires. So this includes your shelter, which is often your tent, sleep system, which is often your sleeping bag and sleeping pad, and your backpack to carry everything. These pieces often carry the most weight, besides your food, and are the building blocks for any good trip. They provide your warmth, your protection from the bugs and the elements, and your comfort. So let's start off with talking about your shelter. Like I mentioned earlier, your shelter is frequently in the form of a tent. Other forms include hammocks and bivvies, but today we will be focusing on tents. Backpacking tents vastly differ from car camping tents, in which they have a smaller form factor, they're typically more lightweight, and they're built to only fit around 1 to 2 people. Their weights can range from 1 pound to over 5 pounds, and backpacking tents that are over on the heavier side are around the 5 pound mark. Lightweight tents typically are 3 to 5 pounds, and the ultralight tent will be less than 3 pounds. And typically what I found is that the lighter a tent is, the more expensive it tends to be. And that's why I suggest starting off with a midweight tent so that you're not breaking the bank as you're just starting to backpack. You'll learn what features you like, and so you'll be able to upgrade as you gain more experience. And going into tent features is a whole nother conversation on its own. So drop a comment down below if that's something you'd want me to cover in another video. Generally, a tent should weigh around 2 to 3 pounds per person. My backpacking tent is a 2-person tent and weighs at minimum 4 pounds, 14 ounces. And when you're looking at a backpacking tent's description, you'll typically see 2 weight-related terms. So this is the minimum trail weight and the packaged weight. The packaged weight is the heaviest weight your tent will be. This includes everything that the tent comes with, including stuffs, sacks, stakes, and packaging. While the minimum trail weight is the lightest your tent will be. It's really only concerned with the bare bones of the tent, so the poles, fly, and tent's shelter. Moving on to our sleep system. And again, we'll be focusing on tent-based sleep systems. So this is typically made up of a sleeping bag, a top quilt, a sleeping pad, and or a pillow. And a general guideline is to aim for your whole sleep system to be between 4 to 7 pounds. Both your sleeping bag and sleeping pad provide you with insulation from the cold ground. And yes, the cold from the ground really does leach your warmth. Your sleeping pad is also meant to provide comfort so that you have a more restful sleep. Your pillow will just add to that more. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my first sleep system. So I feel like I'm a key example of someone that didn't have all the gear because I just wanted to start and try backpacking. So my first backpacking trip, I went without a sleeping pad. Plain and simple, it was not comfortable. The rocks on the hard ground made my body ache the entire night, and my hips just were not having it. When I did get my first sleeping pad for my next trip, it was a compact closed cell foam pad. And while this is lightweight and provides some insulation between you and the ground, it's barely a step up in comfort. Next sleeping pad was one that Anders actually grew up with, and it was his self-inflating thermarest. This was definitely a level up, but my hips were still always aggravated and it was extremely bulky. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen plenty of videos and photos of sleeping pad strapped to the back of my backpack. And my newest sleeping pad is on a whole nother level. It's compact, it's lightweight, and it's designed for a woman's body, so my hips love it. So it finally provides the support my hips need. My first sleeping bag I ordered a week before my trip from REI's outlet. Pro tip, you should always check REI's outlet and resupply section before buying new. My first bag was definitely not the lightest or most compact option, but it was affordable. Last year in 2022, I was also able to upgrade my sleeping bag to my current one, and it's been a game changer. Just my previous sleeping bag alone took up the exact same room as my current pillow, sleeping pad, sleeping bag, and bag liner. Lastly, many people choose to go without a pillow because simply it's not essential. You could just use a stuff sack and fill it with extra clothes, but again, a pillow will add that extra layer of comfort. I now always pack an inflatable pillow, and sometimes I'll even bring my Squishmallow on those shorter trips. In addition to weight, you also want to pay attention to your sleeping bag and sleeping pad's temperature ratings. I mostly 3-season camp in the Pacific Northwest, so the coldest temperature I've really had to deal with was around 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Sleeping bag is rated 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and my sleeping pad is rated 3.5 in R value. And these keep me comfortable for 3.5 seasons of the year. Lastly, let's chat about your backpack. What you want to pay attention to most when you're picking your backpack is the weight, its carrying capacity, and the way it fits to your body. Generally, a pack that's 55 to 65 liters will get you through any duration of trip. I highly recommend going to REI to get a backpack fitted for your body. The crew members there can help you out with this, and this could be the difference between achy shoulders and sore hips to an enjoyable trip. Generally, you should aim for the combined weight of your big three to be less than 12 pounds. This really helps minimize your base weight and gives you more wiggle room for your trail weight. Alright, that will be our most in-depth section, so let's move on to more of your questions. Best backpacking pillow. So I've used 2 backpacking pillows. My first being an affordable one from Trekology, which is a Portland-based company. I believe it's $16 and I purchased it from Amazon. And my newest pillow pairs with my current sleeping pad, and it's Sea to Summit's Aero Premium Pillow. And this one locks into place with Sea to Summit sleeping pads, and it's extremely soft and comfortable to use. Pro tip, when you're blowing up a backpack pillow, don't fill it up all the way with air so that there's more give for your head. So before I even use a pillow, I would just use a stuff sack and I would fill it with any of my extra clothes. This works, but it's not the most comfortable solution. What do I do about nighttime anxiety and getting a good night's sleep? Okay, so funny enough, camping is where I actually sleep the best. And I think it's typically because I'm pretty exhausted from the day's activities and because the woods are really pretty quiet. While at home, I have to use a CBD tincture every night, and I've never actually had to bring this camping. I'll show you the one I use. I use Ned's Sleep Blend, oil-based, and you just take a little dropper. I take it like 30 minutes to an hour before bed every night. I've been doing this for a year or 2, and it's really made a difference. I used to get the worst sleep. I know many people have a difficult time sleeping outside. Here's some of the things I would do to common problems. So if it's too loud, I would wear earplugs to sleep. If I were anxious, I would definitely bring my CBD with me. Except instead of a tincture form, I would probably get gummies so that it's easier to pack. I always make sure I'm not hungry before bed because this is something that has kept me up in the past. And my sleep has definitely improved as my sleep system's upgraded to more comfortable items. Okay, best way to cut weight. 30-pound plus pack is soul crushing. I feel that. Best way to cut pack weight is to evaluate what you're bringing and, unfortunately, look into upgrading your gear to lighter options. What you find essential might be different than me, but these are things that I've cut out and don't bring backpacking. Deodorant. Simply, it's not essential and just embrace the stink. I was actually recently sent a chapstick-sized deodorant that I'm excited to try, and I'll share with y'all how well that actually works. Okay, extra socks and clothes. Hear me out. This might seem gross. I will wear the same top, shorts, and socks for trips that are around 3 to 4 days. It really helps with weight. Oh, okay, you have to bring a mini toothpaste or use toothpaste tabs. Do not bring your whole tube. And I think one of my biggest weight savers is that if you're backpacking with friends, see what items you could share, which is a tent, a bear can, and a kitchen system. This is a key way that I keep my pack weight down. Andrews and I share a cook set, we share food, we share a bear can, we share a tent, and it really helps both of us out. And this last point isn't about cutting your pack weight, but instead is about growing your own strength. So during the winter and early spring, I focus on heavy full body strength training. And this builds up all the muscles you'll need to carry you through the mountains during the summer season. Last year when I did this, I felt so strong, and it actually made climbing Mount St. Helens easy. It was insane. How do you find good backpacking trails and routes? Shameless plug, but you should really check out my blog, Trails and Trekking, on awesome backpacking routes around the Pacific Northwest. I did a lot of hiking around North Cascades and Oregon last year, so we got some gems up there. But here are some tips on how we found these routes in the first place. Starting off with everyone's favorite resource, AllTrails. All long trails on AllTrails can make a good backpacking route. Depending upon the type of hike I want, I'll typically look for trails that are around 8 miles. You could also check the comments of AllTrails trails and see if people have mentioned backpacking in their comments. On a similar note, you could look at maps or AllTrails maps and find trails that you could link together to make a good long route. Oftentimes, I'll link trails together to create a loop, a lollipop loop, or to create an extended out and back. Simply put, you could just search backpacking and the area you want to backpack in, such as backpacking in Olympic National Park. This will pull up countless resources for you to kick off your trip planning. How do you know where to set up camp in places where there isn't a super obvious tent area? Typically, this won't be a problem, especially if you're backpacking in popular, well-maintained areas. So for example, in national parks, you typically have to make a reservation for a campground ahead of time, and you'll only be able to camp in designated spots. Even in popular areas without a campground, the spots are pretty obvious. Personally, out of all my backpacking trips, I've only had one trip where finding a camp spot was kind of difficult. And this is because I was backpacking in a pretty unconventional area. When you are finding your own camp spot, you'll want to follow these guidelines. Camp on durable surfaces only. Please don't trample the brush and the foliage for your campsite. This wouldn't be very L&T of you. I will always try to camp by a water source. I typically use the most water while I'm at a camp to rehydrate my food. So camping by rivers, streams, and feasible lakes is not only beautiful, but they also provide you with water sources. GPS mapping tools like AllTrails or MapMe will often also map camp spots on their trails. And I found this to be very helpful when I'm planning my trips. How do I find where to get water on the trail? Are there websites? Honestly, I don't know if there are websites that focus on finding water. What I do during my trip planning stage is see where the rivers, streams, and feasible lakes are, plan to resupply my waters there. Like I said earlier, I'll typically plan my campsites around the water resources. Now, if you're backpacking in the desert, that is a whole nother game. You'll probably have to pack in your water. Where to go budget and used versus new and expensive on gear. Honestly, if you're able to find good deals on used gear, almost never a bad way to build your supplies. Facebook Marketplace, REI Outlet, REI Resupply, and reuse gear stores like Play It Again are excellent resources for finding gently used gear at excellent prices. However, focusing on new gear that is dirt cheap, as most backpackers will learn, you pay for what you get. I'm talking about those random finds on Amazon that make you go, how is this so cheap? Items like that, they're a red flag. And when you're backpacking, almost every item you bring is essential. The last thing you want is to have one of your essential items break on you midway through your trip. Imagine if your stove breaks on day 1 of your 3-day trip. Your food is likely planned around the stove. If your stove breaks in the backcountry, you'll either likely have to cut your trip short or suffer the consequences. The main guideline I use is not buy cheap knockoffs. Now focusing on expensive new gear, you do not need to buy the lightest, most expensive option at REI. These items are there when you really want to invest in backpacking and go ultralight, but they are definitely not needed to get started backpacking. I've been backpacking for a number of years and my tent has always been considerably heavy. Why? Because I bought one of the affordable options at the time when I was starting. It's really up to you how much you want to save on weight versus how much you want to save on money. How do I get started? I don't know anyone to go with, but I really want to start. Power to you. So we have a few options here. You could look into group trips. I know a lot of content creators online are hosting group trips this year. I've been reached out to myself about hosting one, and for myself, I don't know if I would want to host it through those platforms. There are other options such as online groups that connect people to backpack together. One of my favorite ways to meet other online girls that also have an outdoor interest is through social media apps themselves. Instagram has connected me with so many women across the United States, and I have chatted with them enough, and I would definitely feel comfortable flying out and backpacking with them. I really want to plan a trip with some of them. Honestly, I'm not saying that this is your solution, but there is always the option to solo backpack. If you are to solo backpack and it's your first time, please make sure it's a shorter overnight trip. Maybe a trail that you're comfortable with and that is very familiar to you. This is a great way to warm up to backpacking. One of my favorite trips that I've done was actually a pretty short trail. It was Green Lakes over in Bend, Oregon. It's about an 8-mile out and back. I did this after work on a Friday afternoon, and even though the trip was pretty short, because I was only there basically at night and then left in the morning, it was perfect. I loved it so much. So definitely recommend, do not underestimate those short trips. Alright, with that, this wraps up our beginner backpacking Q&A. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comments. And let me know what topics you want me to cover next and what you actually want to see on this channel. Again, please like and subscribe, go follow me over on Instagram, and I hope you have the best day, friends. Bye!